Nathan Hayes stood alone in the observation deck of the research vessel, staring at the impossible reading on the scanner. His hands shook as he read the data again. The ancient structure orbiting the dying star was not natural. It was a building, a massive one, built by human hands. That was impossible. Humans had never built anything like this. Humans had never left Earth before the colonization ships arrived 3,000 years ago. But the scanner did not lie. Nathan called his team immediately. Dr. Lisa Grant arrived first. Her gray hair tied back in a tight knot, her eyes sharp and focused. She looked at the scan and her face went pale. Commander Kevin Porter came next, his military bearings stiff and formal. They stood together in the observation deck. 3 people who would soon change the course of human history without knowing it. "What is it?" Kevin asked, his voice hard and professional. "We need to get closer," Nathan said. "We need to find out what that structure is." The shuttle ride to the ancient structure took 3 hours. Nathan, Lisa, and Kevin sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The structure grew larger as they approached it. It was a perfect cylinder, 5 kilometers long and 2 kilometers wide. Its surface was smooth and dark, covered in symbols and patterns that hurt to look at. The metal was cold, older than anything they had ever seen. The airlock opened easily, as if it had been waiting for them. The inside was clean, untouched by the rot of time. The walls glowed with soft light that came from nowhere and everywhere at once. A central chamber held a single chair and a large screen. On the screen, words appeared in ancient English. Nathan's heart stopped. Ancient English. The language his people had spoken 60,000 years ago. Before they had scattered across the galaxy. Lisa touched the screen gently. It came to life. A face appeared, old and tired and filled with pain. The face of a woman Nathan recognized from historical records. Margaret Chen, the last president of Earth. "If you are watching this," the woman said, her voice cracked and weak, "then someone of Earth has survived. The Varathi have destroyed our world. They have killed billions. They say we are a threat. They say we must be erased from existence. We have hidden this archive with everything we know. Our technology, our history, our memory." Nathan could not breathe. The Varathi. Everyone knew the name. They were the rulers of the galaxy, the power that kept peace, the empire that all other races obeyed. They were ancient and wise. Everyone said so. "We have sent ships," Margaret continued. "Small ones, carrying our children and our knowledge. We have hidden them. We have given them new identities, new names, new worlds to call home. They will not know they are human. They will not know where they came from. But if you are watching this, then the old blood still runs in your veins. You are the children of Earth. You must know the truth. The Varathi will come again. They will search the stars until they find every last human and destroy us. Unless we are ready." The screen went dark. Nathan stood frozen, his mind unable to process what he had heard. Lisa was crying silently. Kevin's jaw was clenched so tight it looked like it would break. "Check the archive," Nathan said, his voice hollow. "Find everything. All of it." The next 3 days were chaos. The archive contained libraries of information, military records, scientific data, cultural histories, genetic codes. Everything that made humanity human had been preserved here, hidden from the Varathi for 60,000 years. They downloaded it all into the shuttle's computer. But the most important discovery came on the 3rd day, hidden deep in the archives. A single message, recorded by Margaret Chen herself, just before she died. "To whoever finds this," she said, looking directly into the camera, "the Varathi believe they have killed us all. They believe Earth was the only human world. They do not know about the ships. They do not know our children survived. For 60,000 years, we will hide. Our descendants will build new worlds. They will become different peoples. They will forget they were ever human. But if one day someone discovers this message and remembers, then humanity has a choice to make. The Varathi must pay for what they did. But more importantly, humanity must remember who it is. We are the people of Earth. We are the ones who can survive anything. We are the ones who will never surrender. If you are watching this, you must find the others. You must tell them. You must make them remember. And you must decide if humanity is strong enough to do what must be done. The screen went black. Nathan looked at Lisa and Kevin. No words were necessary. They all understood. Humanity was not scattered. Humanity was hidden. And humanity had been waiting 60,000 years for this moment. Kevin moved first. We need to leave. We need to get this information back to the colonies. We need to tell them everything. They will not believe us, Lisa said softly. They will when they see this, Nathan replied, holding up the data core. They will have to believe. As they flew back to the shuttle, Nathan looked back at the archive one last time. The ancient structure floated in the darkness, a tomb and a testament. It was a message from the dead to the living. And the living had received it. The course of human history was about to change. 60,000 years of peace was about to end. Humanity was about to remember what it meant to be human. And the Varathi, who had ruled the galaxy unopposed for longer than anyone could count, were about to learn that they had made a terrible mistake. They had not destroyed humanity. They had only hidden it. And now, hidden humanity was about to wake up. The message spread through human colonies like fire across dry ground. From mining stations in the Outer Rim to agricultural domes on terraformed worlds, from scientific research stations to deep space outposts, the news traveled fast. Humanity was not alone. Humanity was not a scattered collection of random alien species. Humanity was one people, connected by blood and history 60,000 years old. Commissioner Paul Hunter stood in the central hall of Kepler Station, watching as representatives from every known human colony arrived. Some came angry, some came confused, some came filled with tears. They had spent their whole lives thinking they were alone in their identity. Now they learned they were part of something greater than themselves. Paul had always been a politician. He knew how to speak, how to listen, how to bring people together. But this was different. This was not about resources or trade or colony expansion. This was about identity. This was about choosing who they were. The first meeting lasted 16 hours without a break. Paul sat at the center table with Dr. Marcus Wells on one side and Governor Catherine Stone on the other. They presented the data from the archive to representatives of 47 different human colonies scattered across the galaxy. Some of these colonies had been independent for thousands of years. Some had never known each other existed. Now they all sat in one room, learning that they were family. This cannot be true, said Representative David Cooper from the mining colonies. We have no connection to these ancient people. We are ourselves. We have built our own societies. We are built from their genes, Dr. Marcus Wells replied calmly. And we are built from their courage. The archive shows us how they survived the destruction of their world, how they scattered, how they hid. Everything we are comes from them. But what does this mean? Asked Governor Catherine Stone. Do we become soldiers? Do we attack the Varathi? This was the question everyone wanted answered. This was the question Paul had been asking himself since Nathan Hayes first brought the data to him. The archive contains military knowledge, Dr. Marcus said carefully. The Varathi destroyed Earth because they feared humanity. They believed we were a threat. They were not wrong. 60,000 years ago, we had weapons and technology that made us dangerous. The Varathi chose to eliminate us. They chose extinction. We should accept that, said Representative Helena Ford from the agricultural colonies. We should hide. We should forget. The Varathi rule the galaxy. Fighting them is suicide. The room erupted. Half the representatives agreed with Helena. The other half did not. Paul watched the chaos. He let it continue for several minutes before he stood up and raised his hand. I will ask a simple question, Paul said. His voice was not loud, but it was clear. If the Varathi discover us now, what will they do? Will they accept us as equals? Will they allow us to live in peace? No one answered. They all knew the answer. The Varathi destroyed Earth because they feared competition, Paul continued. They feared a species they could not control. Now they have allowed us to grow for 60,000 years. We have built our own civilizations. We have developed our own technology. We have created our own ways of life. If the Varathi discover us now, they will see the same threat they saw 60,000 years ago. And they will do the same thing they did before. They will try to destroy us. So what do you propose? Ask Governor Catherine. Paul took a breath. I propose that humanity chooses to survive. Not by hiding, not by dying, but by standing up, by remembering who we are, by joining together, and by showing the Varathi that destroying Earth was the greatest mistake they ever made. The silence that followed was heavy. This was the moment that would define everything that came after. We need a vote, Helena said. Every colony needs to vote on whether they want to participate. Paul nodded. Of course. But I want everyone here to understand something. The Varathi are not evil. They are not monsters. They are a species that made a choice. They believed they were protecting the galaxy by eliminating a potential threat. But they were wrong, and they need to learn that lesson. Otherwise, they will do this again, to someone else, and that will be our fault for not acting. The vote took 3 days. In the end, 43 colonies voted to join together. Only 4 colonies refused. They wanted to remain hidden, to stay isolated, to hope the Varathi would never find them. Paul did not blame them. They were afraid. Everyone was afraid. But the 43 colonies that had voted yes were more than enough. Dr. Marcus Wells began his work immediately. He gathered every piece of military data from the archive. He worked with the best scientists and engineers from every human world. Together, they began to recreate the weapons of ancient Earth. But they did not just copy the old designs. They improved them. 60,000 years of independent development had made humanity smarter, faster, stronger. Meanwhile, Paul organized the government. He created the Human United Council, bringing representatives from every colony into a single decision-making body. They elected him as the first chancellor. It was a position he did not want. But it was a position he could not refuse. In a speech to the gathered council, Paul spoke the words that would echo through human space for generations. We are Earth. We are the children of a world the Varathi destroyed. We are the survivors they tried to kill. We are scattered. We are different. We are from 1,000 different worlds. But we are one people. And we will remember what the Varathi tried to make us forget. We will prepare. We will unite. And when the time comes, we will show them what humanity truly is. The chamber erupted in applause. Some representatives cried. Some stood and cheered. The scattered tribes of humanity had finally gathered together. And they had made their choice. They would fight. They would make the Varathi answer for what they had done. And they would do it not out of hatred, but out of love for the world they had lost and the people they had lost with it. The age of hiding was over. The age of humanity had begun. Admiral Julia Cross sat in the command center of the flagship, reviewing the specifications for the new fleet. The ships were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They were built using technology from Earth's ancient past, but improved with innovations made by human colonies over 60,000 years. The result was a weapon system that combined the best of both worlds. The construction took 6 months. 6 months of non-stop work. Ships were pulled from regular operations. Mining facilities were converted to weapons production. Scientists worked around the clock. Engineers pushed themselves beyond exhaustion. But when it was finished, humanity had something that made the Varathi tremble with fear, even if they did not know it yet. Julia was a military officer. She had been trained by the best instructors from a dozen different human worlds. She understood tactics and strategy. She understood how to lead people into danger. What she did not know was that she was about to become the most important military commander in human history. She walked through the shipyards with Thomas Brady, the chief engineer. Thomas was a genius. He could take broken machinery and turn it into something beautiful. He could see solutions where others saw only problems. His hands were always covered in grease, and his eyes were always tired. But his mind never stopped working. "The main weapons are online," Thomas said, pointing to the massive cannons that hung beneath the ships. "They will tear through Varathi shields like paper." "You are sure?" Julia asked. "I am sure," Thomas replied. "The Varathi have never faced anything like this. Their ships are designed to fight races that use conventional weapons. We are using energy systems they have never encountered. When we hit them, they will not know what happened." Julia nodded. She had studied the Varathi military extensively. She knew their tactics, their ship designs, their defensive systems. And she knew something else. The Varathi believed themselves superior. They believed they had no equal. That belief would be their weakness. She moved through the preparations with precision. She organized training exercises. She met with her captains individually. She reviewed battle plans. She walked the decks of every major vessel and spoke to the crew members. She told them what they were fighting for. She told them about Earth. She told them about the billions who had died. She told them that this was not just about revenge. This was about justice. This was about making sure the Varathi would never do this again to any species. Intelligence officer Rachel Morgan brought her the data on Varathi movements. Rachel had spent months infiltrating Varathi information networks, stealing their records, learning their secrets. The Varathi believed their communications were secure. They were wrong. Rachel had found ways inside their systems that they never imagined possible. The Varathi Collective controls 17 major regions of space, Rachel explained, showing Julia a 3-dimensional map. They have stations here, and here. Their main military forces are concentrated around their homeworld, but they are spread thin. They have been at peace for so long that they do not believe in active defense anymore. "That will change," Julia said quietly. Rachel looked at her. "You are going to hit them hard." "I am going to hit them everywhere at once," Julia replied. "I am going to make them understand that humanity is not something they can forget." The final phase of preparation involved a single training exercise. Julia gathered the fleet in a hidden region of space. She gathered every ship, every crew member, every soldier that humanity could send. The sight was incredible. Hundreds of ships, thousands of fighters, millions of human beings, all ready to fight. Julia stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Human Valor. Captain Andrew Price commanded the first strike force. Captain Diana Foster controlled the second. Colonel George Matthews led the ground forces. These were the best warriors humanity had produced in 60,000 years. They were ready, but Julia knew something that made her different from all the commanders she had ever studied. She knew that human beings had an advantage that most races did not understand. She knew that humans could survive things that should kill them. She knew that humans could keep fighting when they were supposed to be dead. She knew that humans could create solutions in impossible situations. This was the edge. This was what made humanity dangerous. She recorded a message for the entire fleet. She sat alone in her chamber and spoke to the recording device, knowing that millions would hear her words. To all the people of humanity, she said, we stand at the moment that will define who we are forever. Our ancestors built a great civilization. The Varathi destroyed it. For 60,000 years, we have survived. We have hidden. We have grown. We have remembered. And now, we have been given a choice. We can hide forever, hoping the Varathi will never find us. Or we can stand up. We can fight. We can show the galaxy what it means to be human. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. The Varathi are strong. Their ships are powerful. Their military is vast. But they have forgotten something important. They have forgotten what it means to fight for something more than power. They have forgotten what it means to defend your home, your family, your entire species. We have not forgotten. We will never forget. When we strike at the Varathi, we will strike with the power of 60,000 years of suffering. We will strike with the memory of Earth. We will strike with the knowledge that we have nowhere to go. We must win. And we will. The message was transmitted to every ship. Julia watched on the monitors as the fleet prepared for launch. The weapons were charged. The shields were raised. The crews were in position. Everything was ready. In 3 days, they would make the jump to the first Varathi system. In 3 days, the greatest war the galaxy had ever seen would begin. In 3 days, humanity would return for revenge. Julia looked out at the assembled fleet and felt something she had not expected. She felt hope. Against all odds, against all logic, she believed that humanity would prevail. Because humanity had learned something the Varathi had forgotten. Humanity knew how to survive. And survival was all that mattered when everything else was taken away. The first attack came at dawn, though there was no dawn in space. The sun was just another star in the Varathi system. And the human fleet emerged from hyperspace like ghosts materializing from smoke. Captain Andrew Price commanded the strike force that attacked the primary military station. His ship cut through Varathi defense lines with brutal efficiency. The cannons fired with precision, each shot calculated to maximize damage and minimize unnecessary destruction. The Varathi shields flared and collapsed. The station exploded in a massive ball of fire. Andrew watched the destruction on his monitors. He felt nothing. He was a soldier. He had a job to do. The job was to cripple the Varathi military. Everything else was distraction. All fighters launch, Andrew commanded. Target secondary installations. Do not stop until they are destroyed. The human fighters poured out of the launch bays. They were smaller than Varathi fighters, but faster. Much faster. The Varathi pilots were shocked by the speed and maneuverability of the human ships. In the first minutes of combat, they lost more fighters than they had lost in the last 100 years of peace. Captain Diana Foster was leading the second strike force, attacking a Varathi orbital dock. The dock was a massive structure, containing supplies for 1,000 ships. Diana knew the value of cutting the Varathi supply lines. It was basic strategy. Cut the supply, and the enemy starts to die. Not from weapons, but from starvation. Incoming fire, her navigator reported. Evasive action, Diana commanded calmly. Her ship rolled and twisted, avoiding the Varathi energy blasts by meters. The Varathi were trying to respond, but they were too slow. They had spent 1,000 years fighting slower enemies. They had never faced anything like humanity before. The dock exploded. Supplies, equipment, weapons, all gone. The Varathi would need time to rebuild. Time they might not have, but the real fight was happening on the ground. Colonel George Matthews led the assault on the primary Vorathi command center. The center was protected by thousands of soldiers and massive defensive walls. The human invading force was smaller, perhaps 1/10 the size of the defending garrison. But they had something the Vorathi did not expect. They had nothing to lose. George led his soldiers through a breach in the outer wall. The Vorathi returned fire, cutting down human soldiers by the dozen. But the humans kept advancing. They moved like a tide, unstoppable, relentless. They did not retreat. They did not hesitate. They did not stop until every Vorathi soldier in front of them was dead or disabled. "Take the command center," George shouted, his voice heard over the chaos of battle. "Take it now." The human soldiers fought their way deeper into the facility. They lost soldiers every second, but they kept advancing. They knew what was at stake. They knew they were fighting for Earth. They were fighting for every human who had died in the original attack. They were fighting for the right to exist. Inside the command center, the Vorathi commander, Admiral Kren, stood watching his forces collapse. It was impossible. In his entire career, he had never seen a military response so coordinated, so fierce, so determined. The humans were everywhere at once. They were destroying his forces, his supplies, his will to fight. But then something happened that changed everything. A human soldier, a young man named Kevin Price, found something in the Vorathi archives. Something that made his hands shake. He immediately sent it to Admiral Julia Cross. Within minutes, Julia had the information, and she made a decision that would change the course of the entire war. The information was a list. It was a record of every species that the Vorathi had destroyed. Earth was only the beginning. The Vorathi had eliminated 17 species completely. They had subjugated 50 more. They had created an empire built on fear and extermination. Julia ordered the information to be broadcast to every sentient race in the galaxy. She broadcast it on open channels. She broadcast it on military frequencies. She broadcast it to every Vorathi colony and station. She made sure no one could miss the truth. The galaxy heard the truth, and the response was immediate. Species that the Vorathi had oppressed for thousands of years rose up in rebellion. Species that had been forced to serve the Vorathi turned against them. The Vorathi, who had ruled through fear and military dominance, found themselves facing enemies on every front. Admiral Kren, facing overwhelming odds and knowing that his own people no longer controlled the support systems he needed, made a choice. He surrendered the command center to Colonel George Matthews. It was the first major Vorathi surrender of the war, but Julia knew this was only the beginning. The Vorathi would not give up easily. Their pride was wounded. Their power was threatened. They would fight with everything they had left. She gathered her senior commanders. Andrew, Diana, George, and Rachel Morgan stood in the war room, looking at the updated tactical display. "We have achieved the first objective," Julia told them. "But the war is far from over. The Vorathi homeworld is still the seat of their power. If we strike there, if we take their homeworld, the entire empire will fall." "That is a massive undertaking," Andrew said. "The homeworld will be defended by everything they have left." "I know," Julia replied. "But we do not have a choice. Every day we wait, the Vorathi regroup and rebuild. We must strike at the heart. We must make them surrender completely. Otherwise, this will never end. The casualties will be enormous," Diana added quietly. "Yes," Julia agreed. "But the alternative is that we retreat, and the Vorathi hunt us across the galaxy for the next 1,000 years. We did not come this far to lose now." The decision was made. The human fleet would regroup, resupply from captured Vorathi facilities, and prepare for the final assault. 3 days later, the massive human armada entered the Varathi home system. Behind them came the ships of 17 newly liberated species, all eager to break the chains that had held them for centuries. The Varathi had built an empire on fear. Now they would face something they had not expected. They would face the unified resistance of every species they had ever wronged. And they would learn that fear could only work for so long before it turned into something else. It turned into courage. And courage was something the Varathi no longer possessed. The Varathi homeworld hung in space like a jewel, beautiful and ancient. But it was now surrounded by the largest military force the galaxy had ever assembled. Thousands of ships, millions of soldiers, all waiting for the signal to attack. Admiral Julia Cross stood on the bridge of the Human Valor, watching the planet rotate slowly before her. Communication from the Varathi leadership. The communications officer reported. They are demanding immediate surrender or total annihilation. Julia smiled slightly. The Varathi still did not understand what was happening. They still believed they could win through intimidation and threat. They had not learned yet that humanity was no longer afraid. Respond, Julia said. Tell them that we demand they surrender unconditionally. All military forces must stand down. All weapons must be deactivated. And the Varathi leadership must face justice for 60,000 years of conquest and murder. The response came quickly, and it was what Julia expected. The Varathi launched everything they had. Thousands of weapons. Thousands of ships. A final, desperate attempt to defeat the assembled forces arrayed against them. The battle that followed was the largest and most destructive conflict the galaxy had ever witnessed. Human ships fought with precision and courage. Ships from 17 liberated species fought with rage and determination. The Varathi fought with desperation and fear. Captain Andrew Price led his strike force through the chaos. His ship took multiple hits, but the shields held. The hull was damaged, but the weapons still functioned. He commanded his pilots with calm authority, directing their fire with the precision of a surgeon wielding a scalpel. Hit their capital ship, Andrew commanded. Do not stop until it is destroyed. The human fighters poured their energy into the massive Varathi vessel. The shields flickered and failed. Explosions tore across the hull. Finally, the ship went dark. Its power systems completely destroyed. Captain Diana Foster led her own assault against the Varathi orbital defenses. The defenses were formidable, designed to stop any outside attack. But they were designed to stop one type of attack. They were not designed to stop the combination of speed, precision, and determination that humanity brought. Press the attack, Diana commanded. Do not let them recover. One by one, the Varathi installations fell. The orbital docks were destroyed. The defense platforms were eliminated. The communication stations were silenced. The Varathi were losing control of their own planet. Colonel George Matthews led the final assault on the government center. This was the heart of the Varathi Empire. This was where the decisions that had led to Earth's destruction were made. This was where the orders that had enslaved 17 species were given. His soldiers fought, through layer after layer of defense. They lost people with every step. But they did not stop. They could not stop. Behind them was 60,000 years of suffering. Behind them was the memory of billions of dead. Behind them was the knowledge that if failed, humanity would face extinction. The final chamber held the Varathi Council, the ancient leaders of an ancient empire. They stood, knowing that their time was over, knowing that their power was gone, knowing that they would face judgment. But before George could order the arrest of the council, an alarm sounded. It was a code, an ancient code. It came from the deepest archives of the Varathi homeworld. A code that Julia had discovered in the human archive. A code that would activate a doomsday weapon hidden beneath the Varathi capital city. Julia, watching from her flagship, understood immediately what was happening. The Varathi were prepared to destroy their own world rather than allow humanity to claim victory. They would kill everyone, Varathi and human alike. They would reduce their homeworld to ash. It was the final act of desperation. Julia had seconds to make a decision. She could destroy the Varathi completely. She could order the bombardment of the government center. She could eliminate the council and end the threat. Or she could do something else. She thought of Earth. She thought of the billions who had died. She thought of the archive in space, recording the message of Margaret Chun, and she thought of what Margaret had said at the end. The message that explained why humanity had survived at all. Julia opened a secure channel to Colonel George Matthews. "Get the council," she said. "Get them out now. We need them alive." "Ma'am?" George replied, confused. "Now, Colonel." "That is an order." George Matthews moved faster than he had ever moved in his life. He grabbed the Varathi Council, physically dragging them away from the console that would activate the doomsday weapon. His soldiers surrounded them, protecting them with their bodies, using their shields to block the Varathi defensive systems. Julia, using the command codes from the Varathi archives that she had captured, deactivated the doomsday weapon. The hidden bunker beneath the capital went silent. The weapon that would have killed billions went dormant, permanently disabled. The Varathi Council, now prisoners, looked at their captors in shock. They had expected death. They had expected to be executed. Instead, they were alive. They were captives, yes, but they were alive. Julia, her voice amplified across every Varathi city, made an announcement that would echo through history. The Varathi collective is defeated. The age of your rule is over. But humanity does not choose genocide. Humanity does not choose extinction. We will not become what you became. We will not commit the atrocities you committed. Instead, you will stand trial. All of you. Every person who ordered the destruction of Earth. Every person who enslaved innocent species. Every person who built an empire on fear and violence. You will face justice. And the galaxy will watch as we decide your fate. The Varathi soldiers put down their weapons. The fighting stopped. The war was over. In the following days, the human forces secured the Varathi homeworld. The liberated species established their own governments. The imprisoned peoples were freed. The empire that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years was dismantled, not through genocide, but through justice. Julia stood on the surface of the Varathi homeworld, looking up at the stars. She thought of Nathan Hayes and his team, who had started this entire journey. She thought of Paul Hunter, who had united humanity. She thought of Dr. Marcus Wells, who had given them the weapons they needed. She thought of Thomas Brady and Rachel Morgan and Captain Andrew Price and Captain Diana Foster and Colonel George Matthews. But mostly, she thought of Earth, the world that had been destroyed 60,000 years ago. The world that was now avenged, not through revenge, but through something more powerful. Through justice. Through the choice to be better than those who had tried to destroy them. Paul Hunter, now the Chancellor of the newly formed United Human Coalition, sent her a message. It read simply, "Well done, Admiral. Welcome home." Julia understood the meaning. After 60,000 years, humanity had finally come home. Not to Earth, which was lost forever, but to the idea of what it meant to be human. The idea that survival was not just about staying alive. It was about staying true to your values. It was about refusing to become the monster you were fighting. She looked at the Varathi homeworld, now under human control, and thought of all the work that still lay ahead. Rebuilding, justice, healing. It would take years, maybe decades, maybe centuries, but it was work that humanity was ready for. Because humanity was finally whole. The scattered tribes had gathered. The hidden species had revealed themselves. and the galaxy would never be the same dot in the distance. New ships were arriving. Ships from every human colony. Ships from every liberated species. They came to witness what the galaxy was becoming. A place where power was not measured by weapons or dominance. A place where justice meant something. A place where all species could live in peace. And at the center of it all stood humanity. No longer the hunted. No longer the hidden. No longer afraid. Humanity had finally come home.